My name is Caleb Hart. I'm 39 years old. I'm a single dad, and I clean floors for a living. People don't usually ask for my name. They just say, "Hey, custodian," or "Sir, you missed a spot." But I don't mind. Not anymore. I've learned that respect isn't in the title someone gives you. It's in how you show up, day after day, even when no one's watching. I used to be a carpenter. I had a little workshop, steady contracts, even built custom furniture once. Then life happened, like it always does when you least expect it. My wife passed. Cancer. Left me with a 6-month-old son and hospital bills taller than me. I sold everything I could, my tools, the workshop, the pickup. All I had left was my son, Jake, and my will to survive. That's how I ended up applying for a janitor job at Ryland Tech. Funny thing is, no one lasted in that job more than 2 weeks. The listing had been posted over 20 times in 6 months. Night shift. High-rise headquarters. No benefits for the first year, too many stairs, too many people who looked through you. And worst of all, no one ever said thank you. But I didn't care. I just needed something steady. Something that put food on the table and formula in the bottle. And something quiet enough that I could think without falling apart. So I took the job no one lasted in, and quietly, without trying, I turned the CEO's entire world upside down. But that came later. At first, I was invisible. My first night, I showed up 20 minutes early, dressed in an old gray uniform that hung off me like a reminder of better days. They didn't give me a tour, just handed me a badge and pointed toward the service elevator. The building gleamed like something out of a billionaire's dream. Marble floors, touchscreen elevators, security cameras tucked in every corner like the place was always watching. I started from the top and worked my way down. Offices, conference rooms, hallways with glass walls so clear you'd think there was nothing there. My reflection followed me, sometimes catching me off guard. I looked older than I felt. Around 3 a.m., I took a break on the 25th floor. It was silent, peaceful. I sat by the window, legs stretched out, sipping stale coffee from a plastic lid. That's when I saw her, a woman in a business suit, alone in a glass office across the hallway. Her light was still on. She was sitting at her desk, staring blankly at her computer. I didn't know it then, but that was Evelyn Shaw, CEO of Ryland Tech. One of the youngest in the country. Billion-dollar brain. Ice-cold reputation. She didn't see me. At least I thought she didn't. The janitorial handbook was thin. Only a few pages. Most of it was common sense: mop floors, empty bins, restock the paper towels. But there was one rule they underlined. Literally. Do not enter the 27th floor. A no explanation. Just bold letters and a signature line beneath it. I signed it without asking. When you're desperate, you don't ask questions that could cost you the job. Still, curiosity has a way of crawling under your skin. It wasn't just the restricted floor that felt odd. It was the whole building. Everyone during the day walked like they were 2 steps behind an explosion. Rushed, tense, eyes buried in glowing devices. But at night, the place breathed differently, slower, like it was shedding its skin. My third night, I found a box in the hallway outside the 20th floor, a single cardboard box, no label, no tag inside, a child's drawing, a crayon sun, a stick figure holding a balloon, and one word, written in shaky handwriting: help. I didn't turn it in. I didn't even mention it. I just slipped it into my cart behind the extra mop heads. That same night, I passed the CEO again. Same office, same position, like she hadn't moved in hours. Except this time she looked up. Just for a second. Our eyes met through the glass. I nodded politely. She didn't smile, didn't blink, just turned back to her screen. After that, it kept happening. Every night, I'd pass her office. Every night she was still there, eating alone, or not eating at all. Once, I saw her throw a coffee mug across the room. It shattered, and she just sat there, watching the pieces. Some people lead companies. Others are held prisoner by them. I cleaned up the mug the next morning. No one asked me to. No one noticed I had, or so I thought. A week into the job, I found a stuffed giraffe tucked behind a trash bin on the 27th floor. I know, I wasn't supposed to be there, but the door had been left slightly ajar. The lights were off, and something felt wrong. I peeked in. The space wasn't like the other floors. It wasn't sleek or modern. It was warmer. Wood-paneled walls, carpeted floors, bookshelves. There were toys scattered around the corner. A children's room. In the center of the room was a faded brown sofa. On it, a single blanket, still folded, untouched. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't an office. It was a waiting room for someone who never came back. The giraffe was soft, handmade. It had the name Daisy sewn into the side in faded pink thread. I didn't hear anyone approach behind me, but I felt her, Evelyn Shaw. Her voice was cold, even when barely above a whisper. "You're not supposed to be here." I turned slowly, held up the toy. "Someone left this behind," I said softly. Her face didn't change, but her eyes did. They weren't cold, they were broken. "Put it back," she whispered, "and leave." After that night, I expected to be fired, but I wasn't. In fact, things got quieter, colder. I stopped seeing her office light on. The hallway lights flickered more than usual. The 27th floor door was locked every night after that. But every now and then, I'd find little things. A note under a bench in the lobby. "She still cries in the elevator." A post-it on a bathroom mirror. "He said she stopped talking after the accident." A photo slipped between the janitor logs. Evelyn standing in a hospital room, holding hands with a child in a wheelchair. Every piece pointed to something no one dared talk about. A daughter, a loss, and grief that soaked through every polished surface of that building. Back home, my son Jake was the only thing that kept me from collapsing. He was 4 now. Bright, curious, always asking why, always drawing. One morning he handed me a crayon picture. "That's you," he said, pointing at a tall stick figure with a mop. "And who's that?" I asked, nodding toward a woman in the picture. "She's sad," he said, "but you make her smile." The woman had tears for eyes, but a son behind her. "Do you know her name?" He shook his head. "No, but she dreams loud." I stared at the drawing long after he ran off to play. Kids don't know anything about corporate ladders or grief, but they know hearts. It was 2 weeks before I saw Evelyn Shaw again. This time, it wasn't in her office. It was the lobby. She was standing near the glass wall, her back to me, watching the rain slide down like melted silver. The entire building was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like it's holding its breath. I kept walking. Didn't want to intrude. But then I heard it. A whisper. "Why do you do it?" I turned, unsure if she was talking to me. She didn't face me, just kept staring at the rain. "Why clean a building where no one sees you? No one talks to you?" I gave her the truth. "Because I've got someone who notices when I bring home cereal, or when his jacket doesn't smell like sweat anymore." Finally, she turned. Her eyes were hollow, rimmed with red, like someone who hadn't slept right in weeks or months. "Your son," I nodded. "Jake. 4 years old. He still thinks I'm magic because I can tie his shoes without looking." A silence settled between us. Then she said, "Most people only do things that get noticed." I replied, "Most people forget that the quietest kindnesses leave the loudest echoes." That night, when I went back up to the 27th floor to check the door, just out of habit, it was unlocked again. Inside was a folded note. "Thank you for not asking me about Daisy." From that moment, the tone changed. Not overnight, but slowly. One of the overnight engineers started leaving me sandwiches in the fridge, labeled extras. The receptionist began saying good morning when we crossed paths at 6 a.m., and the head of security, a man named Mitchell, stopped pretending I didn't exist. The building was thawing. I kept working the way I always had. I didn't try to be anything more than what I was. But one night, something strange happened. I walked into the break room on the 18th floor and found Evelyn Shaw sitting at the metal table alone, clutching a crumpled envelope. I froze. She looked up. Her voice cracked like it hadn't been used all day. "Jake," she said. My heart stalled. "What about him?" She slid the envelope forward. Inside was the crayon drawing Jake had made weeks ago. The one I'd left taped to my locker door. "I saw this in the staff hallway," she said. "He drew me, didn't he?" I nodded. "He doesn't know you," I said carefully. "Not really." She smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe he knows just enough." I started noticing more notes. Not scribbled or accidental, deliberate. Folded neatly and left in strange places, behind supply cabinets, in the vents, inside mop closets. They weren't addressed to anyone, but they weren't meaningless either. "I miss brushing her hair. The room still smells like her. Grief isn't loud. It's the silence after." At first, I thought someone was leaving them for themselves, a secret purge. But over time I realized they were left for me. Not as confessions, but as invitations to see someone behind the titles and silence, to understand what had been lost. I never responded in words. I just made sure the 27th floor stayed clean, always. I dusted the bookshelf she never touched, refilled the tissue box before it emptied, replaced the light bulb above the sofa when it started to flicker. Every action said, "I hear you. I see you." It was a Wednesday when the fire alarm went off at 3:26 a.m. Most of the night staff knew the routine. Grab your things, head to the stairwell, wait outside. But something about this one felt off. The elevators were frozen, some lights flickered unnaturally. The air had that strange smell, metallic like overheated wires. I did a sweep of each floor just in case, and on the 27th I found her, Evelyn, curled on the sofa, eyes wide, chest heaving. "I can't move," she gasped. I can't. I knelt beside her. Calm. Gentle. "It's just a drill. You're safe." But I knew it wasn't just fear, it was memory. "I lost her during one," she choked out. "Hospital fire." She was alone in her room. That was it. That was the story. That was Daisy. She had died in a fire during an overnight stay at a children's hospital. And Evelyn, powerful, cold, untouchable Evelyn, had been at a conference 3 states away. I didn't say anything. I just sat with her, held her hand, waited until the alarm stopped, and then walked her downstairs one quiet step at a time. The next night, Evelyn wasn't in her office, but there was a sticky note on the inside of the janitor closet door. Yellow, crooked, left where no executive should have ever been. 3 words. In her handwriting, "You stayed." Why? I stared at it for a long time, the unspoken questions beneath it. The quiet pain. The need for an answer she didn't know how to ask in person. I didn't write anything back. But that night, I left a note of my own, taped to the coffee machine in the 27th floor waiting room. Because some places are worth staying for, even if no one else sees it. The next morning, the note was gone. In its place, a fresh mug, and a single packet of sugar beside it. Evelyn's favorite coffee. It was a Friday when I had no choice but to bring Jake to work. His babysitter had fallen ill, and I couldn't afford to miss another shift. I bundled him up in a hoodie 2 sizes too big and promised him we were just going to Daddy's big night, time building. Jake was wide-eyed the moment we entered the glass tower. He clung to my cart like it was a spaceship. By 2 a.m., he was dozing quietly on a folded-up jacket in a corner of the 26th floor. That's when Evelyn found us. I turned quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I had no one else. I know this isn't." She held up a hand. "You're fine." Then she knelt beside Jake, watched him sleep for a moment. "Does he know about his mom?" she asked softly. "Only that she loved him more than anything," I whispered. Evelyn didn't say anything, but her eyes glistened in the dim light. Jake's the reason I get back up every day, I added, even when I'd rather stay on the floor. She smiled, barely. You're a good father. Then she said something I never expected to hear from her. Come with me. She led me and my sleeping son to the 27th floor, unlocked a side room I'd never seen open. Inside was a small nursery, not updated, not dusted, frozen in time. A crib immobile of stars, a shelf of books, some unopened. She didn't speak for a long time, just stood in the doorway. This was Daisy's, she said finally. She used to come here after her therapy sessions. I'd finish meetings, and we'd read on the carpet. Then one day she just wasn't there anymore. I gently laid Jake inside the crib, just for a moment. He didn't stir, just curled instinctively into the blanket. Evelyn's breath hitched. It's the first time that cribs held someone since her. Then she added, You're the only person I've let see this. A week later, Evelyn asked me to meet her on the 30th floor. I thought I was in trouble, or worse, being let go. But when I walked in, the entire executive board was there, lawyers, suits, her assistant, even HR. She stood at the head of the table, motioned for me to sit. I didn't. I clean things, I said awkwardly. I don't sit here. But Evelyn gestured firmly. Tonight you do. Oh, she introduced me not as the janitor, but as Caleb Hart, the man who showed this company more soul than any department ever has. Then she did the unthinkable. She rolled out a new initiative called Project Echo, a mental wellness and grief support program for employees and their families. She said it was inspired by a child, a custodian, and a place that no one had cleaned until someone cared enough to. They asked if I'd be willing to consult. I didn't know what to say. I was just me. But Evelyn smiled and said, You helped me. Now help others. The 27th floor became something else after that, a space of quiet. People began using it. Not many, just a few at a time. Those who had lost someone, those who had no one, those who didn't know how to say, I'm not okay. Evelyn named it the Whisper Room. No loud talking, no tech, just books, warm lighting, blank journals. I was still the janitor, still pushing my cart, still sweeping crumbs from the edges of polished halls, but people started greeting me by name, not just the overnight crew, everyone. I wasn't invisible anymore. And Evelyn, she came down to the Whisper Room every Friday night, with 2 cups of coffee. One for her, one for me. We sat in silence, until one night she whispered, Jake reminds me what love looks like. And I answered, You remind him what healing looks like. She smiled, and for the first time, I saw peace in her eyes. It didn't happen all at once, but it happened. One morning, a senior developer approached me in the lobby. You're the guy who helped launch Whisper, right? He asked. I laughed. I just mopped the floors. He shook his head. You brought it back to life. The whole company felt the shift. That same week, HR sent a memo. They were implementing quiet care, shifts, extra mental health days, grief circles, peer check-ins. A small corner on each floor was being converted into a whisper pod. It wasn't my doing. It was Evelyn's. But she always gave the credit to me. Behind closed doors, she called me the heartbeat of Ryland Tech. I wasn't used to being seen that way. At night, I still took out the trash, still scrubbed the stairwell corners no one walked on, still showed up with Jake's crayon drawings in my bag. But the world around me, it had changed. One rainy night, as I finished up on the 16th floor, the elevator doors opened. Inside stood a man I hadn't seen before. Silver hair, sharp eyes, crisp black suit. He didn't speak until the doors closed behind us. Yurkai nodded. And you are? Marcus Ryland, he said. Founder, I'm here to see what's changed. I stood a little straighter. He was the man behind it all. He studied me. You're the janitor who left notes in the vents. Yes, Sir, and the one who sat with our CEO during a fire drill. Yes. He smiled. Do you know she hasn't taken a sick day in 5 years? But since you arrived, she's taken 2. One to visit her daughter's resting place. One to take a child, your son I assume, to the Science Museum downtown. I blinked. I didn't know. She credits you, he said. Sad you reminded her that strength isn't about walls. It's about the ones you let in. Then he added, people like you don't usually show up in boardrooms. Maybe that's the problem with boardrooms. He stepped off at the 30th floor. Before the doors shut, he turned back. Thank you for lasting. And for changing what you never had to. 6 months later, Evelyn called me to her office. She was holding a paper Jake had drawn. Another one of his crayon worlds. This one of 2 stick figures holding hands in front of a giant sun. This, she said, is the first time in years I've felt like the light is coming back. She told me she wanted to start something called Daisy's Day. A company-wide day of reflection, remembrance, and kindness. A way to honor not just her daughter, but every employee who'd ever lost someone and kept working through the pain. And she asked me to speak at the launch in front of 700 employees, live streamed to every satellite office. I wanted to say no, I wanted to hide, but Jake was sitting beside me in the office that day, humming and drawing clouds. And he looked up and said, "You can do it, Daddy." So I did. I told my story. Told them about pushing mops and pushing grief at the same time, about loss and small kindnesses, about whisper. About Daisy I didn't cry, but Evelyn did, and when I finished every person stood, not for me, for what we'd all been carrying, and finally sat down, together. 2 Ryland Tech changed after that. People smiled more. Doors stayed open longer. Even the night shift had someone restocking snacks and leaving sticky notes with dumb jokes like, even robots need hugs. The whisper rooms expanded, not just at HQ, but across all branches. Other companies started asking about them. We weren't just a tech firm anymore. We were human, and me, I stayed, still cleaned the same halls, still pushed the same cart. But now I had a name badge that read, Caleb Hart Staff Care Liaison. It meant I talked to people, listened, offered tissues, carried stories. Same mop, bigger heart. Jake got older, started school, drew even more sunrises. One day he told me, I want to be a helper like you, Daddy. And that was the moment I realized this story was never really about jobs, or grief, or companies. It was about presence, about how sometimes the person who walks in last ends up holding up the whole building. Not loudly, not in titles, just quietly. The way love and healing always arrive, sometimes. The biggest changes come from the quietest people. The ones who don't ask for attention, but leave behind a world that's just a little better than it was yesterday. If this story moved you, touched your heart, or made you think, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to know what part of the story spoke to you the most. And as always, thank you for giving us your time. We hope it was worth every minute.